Today we're talking about living in exile, and that includes us. You'll see I grew up as a patriot. I knew the Marine Corps hymn before I knew anything that wasn't sung in church. My dad was a Marine Raider during World War II. My brothers-in-law both served with honor in Vietnam. I was in ROTC when I was in college. I actually had an appointment to the Air Force Academy, and because of, I can only guess, stupidity, decided not to take it. I grew up believing in our country and believing that it was a righteous place and believing that we did good things for people in this world. As I grew up, I also learned that my experience might differ from others. My country was not perfect and is not perfect, but it's my country. We have past mistakes and we have current flaws. The crime, the devastation of slavery over 450 years still hurts our country today. The Civil War, which was the worst battle we were ever in. The years of Jim Crow legislation that took away the rights that had been fought for in the Civil War. The civil rights fight that continues to provide an equitable place for everybody. The places where women were left out and excluded. The places where we fought and still fight and struggle over immigration and appropriately incorporating other people into our country. The places where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, where there's tremendous want next to tremendous richness. Those are things that we still struggle with. Growing up in Birmingham, going to school in Nashville and Kansas City, living in North Carolina since 1993, I have learned more about these places than a lot of people. My dad, as I've told you, used to take me to the places where the civil rights struggle happened in Birmingham and say, this is what happened and this is what went on. I came to North Carolina and I learned about the struggle here, and I learned about the places where there were still very rich people and very poor people living close to each other without any interaction. I've seen women not given the same treatment as men in the same positions. I've seen people who didn't know how to live having trouble with the people around them. And I've been a pastor to Republicans, Democrats, independents, even an anarchist in my 33 years doing this. And in that time, I've seen that probably 80% of what we say we agree with, but man, we fight over that other 20. And there's almost a difference in perspective that really colors everything that happens for us. I have neighbors whose lives are very different from mine. I learned what it was like to deal with people as a person of color, as I had friends who told me patiently and repeatedly about what they were facing and going through. I've got friends who are gay, and I've got friends who are wealthy and friends who are poor. I've got friends who have been abused and mistreated and ignored, and friends who one can only call spoiled by life and the things they've gone through. And all of these people face this country that I love in a different way, and they see things differently than I do. And if I'm not willing to listen, I just categorically deny their experience. We have people who have made mistakes and people who have been pushed aside, and some people who think they're above all the problems of the other categories. I recognize I'm in a privileged position. As a white man, I'm not the one who's mistreated most of the time. And understanding that I need to care for others who aren't like me is part of being America in my point of view. So this language that we've read today in the scripture that we heard Jesus talk about, it speaks to me. I've been in exile. My family lived outside the big rooms. My dad's family grew up on the wrong side of the track, right at the track. My mom's family lived in different places over time, and they were a blended family at a time that blended families didn't happen. And so we were left out of our town discussions. We were left out of the what's our plan for the future. My family was just trying to get along and get around. We had friends, but none of us had any political power or economic power that we could exert to change the world. We were left out of the places where people were talking about those things, but we were accepted in other places. It was okay to be in manufacturing. It was okay to be a teacher. It was okay to serve people in the military or the police or the fire. It was okay to protect people or to heal people. It was okay to be a janitor or a cleaning person. It was okay to be part of a construction group, the workers as we build the machinery and the items that the country required. There was dignity in that work, and there was a living of sorts in that work. But there were also places that we weren't invited into. We lived in a place that was mostly safe, but it wasn't the best part of town. We had a good family, but we weren't in charge. I've been an outsider all my life. Then I began to realize as I studied the Word and as growing up I learned about what God said to God's people, this is not just a Bell family story. This is the story of the Christian church. This is the story of God's people. And we know, looking at the Bible, God has always done some of his best work through outsiders. Abraham was a second-generation wanderer who just went from place to place, never calling any place his final home. Joseph became a slave because his brothers abused him. David was a shepherd, the lowest of the low, and God made all of them, as we sang this morning, they were made for more than they knew. And God worked in their lives and did something amazing to these outsiders to bring them where God could use them. As I began to learn about the Bible and experience the people, that microcosm of life around me, God opened my eyes. I saw that my country is not monolithic and it's not the only place. I saw that God's purposes can be aligned with America and they can be different than the United States. The language of exile is not just ancient history, it's part of the Christian life. Let's look at our readings for today. Joseph spoke to people who had been carried away from their home and placed in a foreign land. Jesus spent his ministry among the poor and the sick and the overlooked and those who didn't have power. I mean, who else is going to sit by him on a mountain for 5 days and follow him around all through Galilee? It's not the people with jobs, right? So the people who followed him obviously had a little more time and a little less to do. Peter called Christians foreigners and exiles and told them to live such good lives among their neighbors that their witness would point people towards God. So we live in a holy tension. We're not like the world around us, even though we're part of it. And even if, as a lot of us have lived our whole lives in this country, it feels like home, it really isn't our final home. Right? We aren't told to escape from the world or to be absorbed by it. We confront the world and stand for God, but we also adapt to the things that are around us. If you decide that the laws of the land don't apply to you, you'll find yourself in a different place the next day, right? We separate from the world, but we also participate in the politics and the economics and the community life of the world. We are not of it, but we are sent by Jesus into it, right? We are not conformed to this world, but the Bible tells us to become all things to all people so that by any means we might save some. These are complicated statements. These are places where you want to do something simple and easy. I'll be honest, Christianity might not be your religion. Because if you just want a set of rules to follow, God calls you to a relationship. If you just want a set of do's and don'ts, God calls you to a complicated place where you love people, but you don't become a part of them. Following Jesus isn't an accessory to being an American. In other words, we're not Americans first. We live as Americans whose lives are being shaped and corrected, redeemed and sent by Jesus Christ. So even though we're Americans, we're Christians. And let's put these words in the right order. We are not Christian Americans. We are American Christians. Christian is the noun, American is the adjective that matters. Being American shapes where we live and serve, what freedoms and responsibilities we've received, our history, and the neighbors God has given us. But being Christian tells us who we are and where our highest allegiance belongs. America may shape our experience, but Christ defines our identity. America may receive our gratitude, but Christ receives our worship. America may call for our service, but Christ commands our lives. There's a difference, and we have to understand it. This gives us specific roles in our community. Again, looking at the text, in Jeremiah, God tells his people, don't withdraw, don't despair, and don't spend your life waiting for escape. You know, we have Christians who do that today. Oh, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and Jesus needs to come back right now. And when the economy goes worse, there are more people praying, Maranatha, Lord Jesus, come quickly. And when the economy's better, you don't hear that as much, right? And when there's a war, oh, there's going to be roars and rumors of wars. And Ronald Reagan was the Antichrist, and Donald Trump is the Antichrist, and Mikhail Gorbachev's the Antichrist. And they take these apocalyptic views that say God is going to tear everything up and bring it all down. We don't live for the future. We live for Christ in the present. And whatever God is about in the future, we know that here and now, God is about redemption. God is about changing lives and helping people. God is about making a difference. And so Jeremiah tells those exiles, build houses, plant gardens, raise your family, seek the peace of the city you are in. Pray for the place where you are. Major point here. Exiles bless the place where God put them. It is our job to be salt and light, Jesus says, in a world that desperately needs preserving and cleansing. In Matthew, he goes on to say, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. The coin bears Caesar's image, but the people are made in the image of God. Caesar may receive taxes and honor and our allegiance to a point, but God alone receives our worship and our ultimate allegiance. I was so thankful to see so many expressions of love for our country all over the country in the last few days. But what really delighted me is all these people who love our country were singing praises to God. And we're standing up and saying, I believe in this country because I believe God's blessed it. And that's where we need to start. In 1 Peter, Peter tells the Christians to live as foreigners and exiles, but not as rebellious or bitter people. It's not we're sitting here because we have no choice. It's God has blessed us and has put us in a place where we can serve. God has blessed us and has put us in a place where we can serve. Whether you love your situation or you're not as happy with it, understand God can use you where you are, right? Peter goes on to say, live good lives, do good, respect everyone, love the family of believers, fear God, honor the emperor. Peter was saying this either before or right at the time of Nero. Nero blamed a fire in Rome on the Christians and tried to destroy them. There were 6 different persecutions of Christians between AD 33 and AD 367. Time after time, the Christians tried to be good citizens and got rewarded with punishment and imprisonment and death. It's estimated that John was the only apostle who was not murdered. Wow, 11 out of 12. Well, 10 out of 12. What do you do when the world seems to be against you? Paul goes on to say in Corinthians, we are Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. So Christians are ambassadors. While we see our citizenship as belonging to God, we accept the responsibility of living in this world. We live as law-abiding citizens. We honor our rulers and we honor our community. There are days I don't want to honor my rulers. Amen? There are days that I'm not happy with what goes on in my community. I'm really frustrated about education in Gaston County right now. But I work in the system. I work to give my part of participation, and I remember whatever I say or do reflects back on my Lord. So even if I'm not happy with everything that's happening, I need to live a life of honor and care. I need to live a life that puts Christ first and takes the steps I can take. So what does that look like in Gastonia in 2026? What does that look like in America in this section of our governmental life? What does that look like as a citizen of a country that's not as free as ours? Say a place like Ukraine, where you're under attack from people who are supposedly sharing your faith. A place like Gaza, where the Christians are the ones being attacked. A place where you're being raped and killed just because you're a believer, like Africa. What does it look like? It looks like we take one step at a time and do what God asks us that day. It looks like we try our best to love God first, as we talked about in Sunday school, and then to let God lead us in everything else. It's not a simple road. It's not an easy path, but it is straightforward. You are a servant of God in the United States of America in the 21st century. Your job is to love God and to serve God in this country. I got to tell you, I'm still a fan of the U.S. I'm going to cheer on our soccer team tonight. I'm going to vote in every single election I get a chance to be part of. I'm going to speak up, as I did to a local official this week, not in public bombastically, but to build relationship and make changes. I'm going to try to be an agent of Christ wherever I find myself, and I find myself in Gastonia, North Carolina. So my job is to love God and love people here. In the end, we are called to be in but not of the world. We follow the rules of the world unless they conflict with the love of Christ. But our goal is to so live and act that the light of Christ can be seen wherever God puts us. Who saw fireworks last night? Last night we saw fireworks, and I sat there at Bradley Station and watched. I love the environment of the Gastonia fireworks because, as I said earlier today, I think it's one of the biggest community events we have. I think the fireworks and the Christmas parade are the places where the city gets together. And so even though it was hot, I went down there and I saw a few people and I met a few people and I watched. And you see what happens. They shoot off a rocket, and you see a little streak if you're paying attention. And then all of a sudden, it explodes. And some of them go, woo, 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 and they do their own little thing after they explode. And there's different colors and there's different textures. And a light rises and it gets bright. And then another goes and it gets bright over here. And they penetrate the darkness and they make it a bright place. And there's loud crackles like thunder. And it changes. For a moment, the darkness is gone. but it's no longer the only thing you can see. By the light of the fireworks, you can see everything else. Well, that's a picture of the church. You see, one person tells the truth. One person forgives someone when they don't have to. One person is a servant instead of a domineering person. One person refuses to hate. One person feeds a neighbor. One person prays for a city. One stands with someone who's been pushed aside. One gives to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but gives God what belongs to God. And just like the fireworks, it brightens up. And there's a light that rises, and then there's another and another, and there's dozens and there's hundreds, and it's all over the city and it's all over the world. You look back at the glass as you go out in the foyer, you'll see where there are Nazarenes all over the world. There are Christians all over the world. There are people serving God in every country. And so this week, I ask you to seek the peace of the place where God has put you. I ask you to find darkness and be light. I ask you to find things that are raw and be salt. I ask you to find hopelessness and be the hope. Encourage someone, feed someone, stand up for someone, pray for someone, speak the truth with love, honor all the people, love the believers, fear God, honor the emperor. You see, as exiles, we have a unique place. We aren't part of the system unless we choose to be. We are people who are standing above Republican or Democrat, rich or poor, black, white, brown, or yellow. We are people who stand in a separate world while living in this one. And so our faith is not dictated by the politics of Washington or Raleigh. Our faith is not dictated by the size of our wallet or the color of our skin or our preferences or our temptations. Our faith is dictated because our ultimate allegiance is to Christ. And as that person, we are living for Christ in every place we go. We're living for Christ in the supermarket. We're living for Christ at the school. We're living for Christ in the places where we're the only ones there. And we don't give in to our temptations or our desires or our habits or our weaknesses. We let Christ make us the people he calls us to be in this place. It's dark outside. Don't blend into the darkness. Don't curse the darkness from a distance. Don't make a little place where it's bright here and dark everywhere else. Shine in the darkness. Because we are American Christians, Christ is our life, the kingdom is our hope, and the God who put people into exile still sends his people into the world as witnesses of his light. Do you love our country? Do you love our families? Do you love your community? Love all of them first with the love God has given you.